Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Asian Hustle Network podcast. Today we have David Hsiao. David is a successful entrepreneur. We're really excited to have him on the show today. David, tell us about yourself a bit. Like, who are you and what kind of entrepreneur are you?
Great. Hi, everyone. First of all, thanks for having me on Asian Hustle Network. It's an honor to be on. My name is David. I originally Taiwanese. I was born in California. Shortly after a few years there, I moved with my family over to Beijing, China, where I proceeded to spend about the next 20 years there. Basically grew up and educated in China, and then after finishing high school, I came back to California to get my bachelor's in economics, and then right after graduation, I returned back to Beijing again for work. So I'd been spent most of my professional career in Asia, hopping around different cities there. Currently back in the U.S. again. So my I've my main career is currently in crypto. I do all kinds of things in crypto. So to keep it short, in 2000 early 2017, we started a cryptocurrency consultancy called Black Diamond. At the same time, we also started a media company called Block Journal, which is a monthly digital magazine covering all things in blockchain, tech, crypto. We wanted to keep we want to keep Block Journal easy to understand, entertaining, and informative for readers. It was sort of just something that was lacking at the time. I can elaborate more on that later. And currently, we're working on a NFT called Astro Baby Club, which I would love to talk more about too. So that's sort of the gist of what's been going on the last 5-6 years.
Yeah, I mean, all of that sounds really cool, right? I think just starting off, like you spend most of your life in China. I think having you in the podcast today, I couldn't even tell if that's the case, right? Just like your
Mhm.
demeanor, the way, honestly, there's no accent when you talk. And I'm kind of curious
Yeah,
too.
I get that. I get that a lot.
I'm kind of curious. Like, I myself have always wanted to like live in Asia for a bit and like see what's out there. What was it like growing up in China, like compared to like the misconceptions that we do have in the Western world? Like, what was it like growing
Mhm.
up in China and actually like starting your career off in China, and now coming back to the U.S.? What are the key differences that you're seeing?
Great question. So I got to Beijing in 1996, and this was shortly, only a few years really after Deng Xiaoping sort of opened up the country to the West, or to the global markets. Back in 1996, when we first got there, it was Beijing itself, particularly, was a very it was much like any other city in China. Of course, fast forward to today, it's obviously a tier 1 city. It's it's quite dominant in entertainment and finance globally. And China has, of course, risen to become a superpower since then. But back then it was really quite simple. When we were children there growing up, I attended an international school there, but which hence no accent, I guess. But we it was really just quite a simple life until I remember vividly around 2003 is when these real estate market started really picking up there. Um, you would see multiple of growth, much faster growth around then, especially leading up to 2008, when the Olympics was first held in Beijing. So that was a big change, because you started seeing basically from 2005 to 8, those 3 years, China, the government started building up the country's infrastructure a lot quicker, and you would start seeing high rises pop up much faster. And that's also when I noticed the city itself became a lot more internationalized. You would start seeing a lot more foreigners and expats. Large all these multinational companies started entering China throughout that decade. So when I graduated in 2008, it was a lot different from when we first arrived. I think Beijing to me will always be a home, but it always have a familiar place in my heart. But it definitely changed a lot. And in terms of business, so I went to school in California after for college, and then after 4 years there, I mean, if you're around the same age, 2008 was like the worst time to be entering school, and also 2012 was probably the worst time to be looking for jobs. So after college, I had it was a pretty tough time because I had trouble debating what I wanted to do at the time. my first instinct was sort of to go the route of what a lot of my peers and people at that time were doing. So I looked into consulting, I looked into banking, finance, that field. I remember flying over to New York to interview for a bunch of jobs over here, and um, at the end of the day, I realized a couple things. One was I thought where the next big moves or the next biggest growth markets would be. I still thought China would probably be the best place at the time. And also, another reason was more personal, where I felt as an Asian in America, it's pretty tough. It's pretty tough to climb the corporate ladder here, especially to the top. And like I had I had pretty big ambitions when I was out of college. I didn't know what I wanted to do yet, but I know I wanted to do something big. So at the time, I thought, I think I already have a base and connections in China or in Asia in general. I figured it might be best to move back there and give it a shot. So at 22, I went back to Beijing and started working there again. Um, to answer your question about what sort of the major differences are, I think particularly from learning from working in crypto, uh, China's sort of a beast to deal with in terms of business. There's a lot of gray area. That's the biggest thing. Probably the biggest difference I noticed between the U.S. and China in terms of working or business environment. Starting a business over there is quite a lot tougher. Things in the U.S. are done much more systematically. I'd like to describe it as more black and white, where there are rules in place, and there's a system that supports those rules, and they follow those rules. Whereas in China, it's a lot more to do with maybe interpersonal relationships, or I think the system there isn't as established as it is in the West yet. I think it's getting there, but it might take a while. Um, I think the large population probably plays, and culture probably plays a role in
Yeah, I mean, I definitely heard
that.
that too from other business friends in China. Especially, they kept telling me like the innovation in China is actually really, really fast, right? The rate of growth is fast. The entrepreneurial field is very cutthroat compared to the US side. They say that US sort of plays fair, but in China, it's like you don't play fair, you just try to win at all costs, which is really interesting for me to hear. And it's really interesting to hear that perspective too. And I kind of want to talk about, you know, honestly, like I know that you worked in the hotel business right after college and you wanted to get to restaurants. What what made you transition from that original dream and getting yourself into like a fintech startup?
Good question. So when I first got back to China, my first job there was um, I had to, since I didn't come from a food and beverage background, I didn't have a degree in hospitality. I didn't study that, but I had always my family has always been in sort of been dabbling with the food and beverage business and hospitality. So my family was into restaurants. They did bakeries, restaurants, and factories producing food, wholesale, things like that, and the hotel business. So when I got back, that was sort of a natural thing I wanted to do. Maybe get into sort of part of the family business. So my first job back, I contacted a friend who worked at the Opposite House Hotel, which was at the time one of the top hotels in Beijing. It was a boutique hotel, very fancy, artistic type of hotel. So I started off there, and I bartended there actually for six months, just to get my feet wet in the whole hospitality business. So those were really fun times. I remember we would get to work around 4 p.m. and then close out around 2 a.m. So I was basically a night owl at that time. And then after that, I realized I wasn't. I found 6 months working in a bar was enough experience in hands on there. So I moved over to Park Hyatt Hotel, which was also the top. It was the number one hotel in Beijing at the time. I did event coordination and in Park Hyatt, and that's where I feel like I learned most of what I know about hospitality. The standards there were extremely high, which is exactly what I wanted to learn from. I felt if you could learn from the best, then maybe if you started your own business in hospitality or food and beverage, then it would emanate or reflect off my experience at Park Hyatt. But during my time at Park Hyatt, it was very stressful. We were working probably 16-hour days. The pay was really bad. I have nothing bad to say about Park Hyatt, but it was very stressful time. And I thought at that point in my career, what is the of top of this business? How would I envision the top of this business? What is the ultimate position I can reach? And that would probably be my next level up would be manager, and then GM. GM would be the top of the hotel, and then after that, you'd probably be greater area, northern China GM, which I envisioned myself even in that position, maybe a decade later. Is that something I wanted to do? And then the answer really was no. I didn't want to. I didn't want to just work for another company my whole life and make basically make money for others. I was working really hard hours. I was pulling in a lot of revenue at the time for the hotel, but none of it went to me or anybody around me or my colleagues. It really just went to the company. So, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just not something I wanted to do forever. Um, so after that, after Park Hyatt, a friend of mine reached out and asked me if I wanted to join his fintech startup. Briefly, what this fintech startup was doing was they were transferring money overseas. It's sort of like TransferWise, this company that does overseas transfers and exchanges. So, but the interesting about this company was they were doing it with Bitcoin. So what they would do is transfer money overseas and then convert Bitcoin to cover the difference, and then that's how they would get money to different countries. I don't know if that company worked out, but that was my first real exposure to Bitcoin and crypto.
Wow. I mean, that's quite the amazing journey to hear that already, right? And hearing about all your experiences too, and the hospitality business, it's a tough business, right?
It is. It is.
Yeah, it's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of smiles everywhere, greeting, getting the stuff done, right? And the way that you reflect your mentality is very millennial. Like I think all
Mhm.
of us go to that life crisis at one point in like our early careers. Like, is this all there is to life? Is this all I want to do in life? Right. And I feel like more so than other generations, millennials are very attracted to like entrepreneurship. There's something very sexy about it, right? You want to be your own boss, like you want to make more money, you want to have impact in the world. But then when you finally get to entrepreneurship, it's a lot tougher than the TV shows make it out to seem. TV shows like you have nice
Mhm.
suits, nice cars, you're flying everywhere. Half of that's probably true to a certain extent, but the other side is like entrepreneurship demands almost like your entire focus, your life, your dedication to making it successful. And when you got to forming, you know, the Black Diamond Group in 2017, what was your first like 6 months to a year like? How has your mentality changed from employee to employer? And I feel like a lot of people have a very interesting transition, right? It's like, oh no, like I'm the leader. I feel every single decision. I feel every single consequence that I make. So what was your first 6 months like?
Good question. Um, in terms of like the whole what you mentioned about the whole millennial thing, I think it's something I exactly like I felt too. I think it's an attitude of I'd rather die or burn and crash on my own, doing my own thing and trying than just living sort of a stable life every day with not much interest. At least for me personally. In terms of Black Diamond, so after leaving the fintech startup, I was sort of in a period where I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. However, I was really interested in crypto at the time. I started reading. That was my first time really just researching more about crypto. I remember Bitcoin at the time it was probably around $2,000, and the whole market was maybe 10 billion, 20 billion market cap. Today, obviously, it's a lot bigger. But at that time, I just found it really interesting because I started using it. I started using crypto in terms of sending money around, and I realized it was a couple things about it. One is it's anonymous. Two, it's really fast. And three, you don't have the you don't so you don't, it didn't have the regulatory oversight at the time where you could send it to any person, any country within a matter of seconds. So that's what I found the first thing that really sparked my attention towards it. And then I started reading about it every single day. Um, as I was doing that, I started going to different conferences, and this was sort of how the beginning of the company. I attended a conference in Beijing where I met one of my partners in Singapore. We started talking about he worked at a crypto company at the time, and we started talking about just the industry, what we thought of the whole business, and then we started thinking about where there were voids in the market at the time. In 2017, the whole crypto business wasn't even close to as established as today. There were really the main focus was on Bitcoin, Ethereum, maybe a few of the other top coins, and then there were some exchanges popping up. which supported the trading of the coins. These were really the only, and at the same, and I guess the third business would have been miners. These were really the only few businesses at the time, the only types of businesses in this industry that I thought would be a really, really big business one day. So we thought about what was missing, and then we realized that in the future, in the very near future, it was very possible that this business would get bigger. So that was the first question I asked myself if I wanted to really dive fully into crypto. One is that in 5 years' time, would this business be bigger or smaller or gone? And I was pretty sure at the time that it was going to be bigger. So we decided, oh, okay, then if it's an industry that's going to be growing, and so far there's not much to it, I think there's a chance here, an opportunity here to be starting something that could leave an impact and also be at least be growing. So we started a consultancy because we looked at the business, these three categories, and we realized if this business were to get bigger one day, there's going to be more tokens, there are going to be more exchanges, and with that comes a lot of a need for sort of ancillary help. For example, if you look at traditional businesses like banks or media businesses, any business, they need PR, they need people underwriting when they go public, all these types of things. And Bitcoin and crypto, I didn't see any difference there. We figured that these companies that were popping up would need help in all types of ways. So we started Black Diamond, which is a full service consultancy. We focused mainly on helping companies with marketing, social media management, building communities. Because at the time, if you could conquer sort of social media at the time, then your company would have a much higher chance of success in crypto, especially when you're launching a new token, which there were a lot in 2017, probably tens of thousands. And then we started working with exchanges too. At the time, I remember there were tens of thousands of exchanges popping up at the time. Now, of course, there's only probably a few hundred that survived 2017. But yeah, so that was sort of how the Black Diamond started. And then at the same time, we started the media company for the same very similar reasons. There was no Forbes or Bloomberg media for crypto at the time. And we figured that eventually people needed, from a retail standpoint, people needed to read about it. People needed to learn about crypto and sort of follow up with news. So that's why we started Block Journal. The first 6 months were, honestly, it didn't feel that tough at the time because we were starting a new thing that was actually fun. We were sort of learning as we were going. It was a lot of my partners and myself, it was the first venture into entrepreneurship. We were just sort of learning as we were going, and we really just tried to network as much as we possibly could. It turns out that we started off with Black Diamond, but it turns out that Block Journal, the media company, actually brought in most of our business because what we would do is, so it was a monthly magazine. We would find people to feature and interview to put on the cover. And what we found was that at the time was that it was such a small circle of people in the business in crypto at the time that it was really easy to get access to compared to other industries. If I started a traditional finance magazine and tried to interview people like Buffett or people at BlackRock hedge funds, it'd be virtually impossible. But when we started Block Journal, these people who were like titans in crypto already were really open to us interviewing them. And in turn, after speaking with them, getting to know them through interviewing them, we gained a lot of connections that way, and that helped a lot in our consulting side of the business, where we would eventually end up working with these companies after interviewing them and featuring them.
Yeah, I mean, I love that story a lot. And essentially, I think there's a word for that. It's called building social capital. Whenever you're meeting a lot more people, you're interviewing them, I think it comes to that philosophy of give first and take later, which is absolutely important in business. And when I have entrepreneurs ask me, like after the podcast, like, hey, like I'm a new entrepreneur, how to get started? I have like no traction. My biggest thing is like interview people and like create your own podcast or something, right? Because you're building that relationship that's so valuable. And also you're learning a lot too as you're speaking to more and more entrepreneurs. And I really like the idea behind Block Journal as well, right? You know, I'm an avid reader of like TechCrunch. I read TechCrunch every single day. I read the Wall Street Journal every day. And you're right, like there is a missing gap for the crypto market, the crypto news. Like, how do you hear more reliable news, right? And you really think back to how crypto is right now, is really comparable to like the internet in like the early 1990s. There's a lot of noise. And to be honest, when you go out, I mean, no offense, when you go out to like crypto events or crypto conferences, I feel like the information is not quite mature enough yet, right? So how to find a reliable source? And I really thank you for taking the effort to do that and create and vet news for people who want to get into crypto and want to learn more. And I want to talk a little bit more about NFT Astro Baby Club. What is this? Why'd you start it? What's the purpose behind it? And what do you hope that it will become?
Absolutely. So that's probably the most exciting thing that's come up for me personally in business in the last couple of years. So we started Astro Baby Club. One was because we did want to get into the NFT business, but two, we wanted to create something that was fun too. After working so many years in crypto, you're dealing with a lot of numbers. You spend most of the time on your computer, especially with the pandemic the last couple of years. Most of the time is really just dealing with charts and numbers, market caps, things like that. And even though everyone we work with, we all love the crypto business, and I think we'll probably be doing it for the rest of our lives. But we wanted to do something that was fun and sort of with art. I think with art, it brings a lot of it brings a side of passion and creativity that just doesn't exist with crypto, and tech, I guess, in a lot of ways. So what we did with Astro Baby Club is we found our friends who were artists. We picked these artists out. We talked to them about starting an NFT together, and we wanted to create art that was fun and cute, and that was sort of the beginning. And then the main goal in the long term is we want to be doing pushing limits in Web3, where sort of we we could test what could be done, because it's so early, it's still so early in the whole Web3 and NFT business, where it's sort of like crypto in 2017-16, where we people don't really know where the business is heading, where the industry is heading. But I think being a part of it, just to sort of get our toes into this whole NFT business, um, it gives us a chance to sort of play around and see what we can do. Our whole team is all Asians. All the artists are Asians. We wanted to, in terms of the artist side, we wanted to give creators, like I wanted to give creators a platform where they could um, not only showcase their art, but also express their creativity and their fun side. When we started drawing and creating all this art for Astro Baby Club, I wanted to give each of the artists sort of free reign on what they wanted to do with the art. So our Astro Baby Club is generated from over 200 traits, where it's random. Each 200 of these traits are individually hand drawn by various different artists. Where when you randomly generate them together, it creates a lot of excitement and fun in terms of what you're going to get in the final piece of art. So that's something I thought was really fun, and I wanted to make sure our entire team was having fun. After working in crypto for so long, it was I think it was about time we did something more creative and fun. Later on, we do want to build Astro Baby Club into a what they call digital brand, where it's physical and digital, a brand where you can have metaverse clothing or real life products. This is something we're looking to do very much in the near future. Yeah.
I love to hear it. It's so exciting, right? And I did attend NFT week in New York this year in June. Hope to see that you
Ah,
guys have a booth and you guys have an event next year. I would definitely be there to attend and support.
great. I was there too. We actually hosted our launch party for Astro Baby Club at that time too.
Oh
We
wow.
found we found this venue in Double Chicken Please, this great lounge in New York. Had about 100 people who came out to enjoy a night of NFTs and talking metaverse and drinks and food. It was good. Next
Yeah.
year.
I'll definitely be there next year for sure to support you, David. I mean, as we're recording this podcast, given the state of the NFT markets right now, are you bullish on NFTs? Are you kind of worried in some ways? I feel like this is just my opinion. I just want to put it out there. I feel like a lot of NFT is based upon community, which the community is very, very strong, by the way. But also with the community also comes a lot of hype, a lot of emotion involved, right? As you see, when people lost confidence, the price declined sharply. We see massive layoffs from like OpenSea, all these other crypto platforms. I just want to hear what your take is. And it can be a hot take too on the NFT crypto markets in the next, let's say, for 5 to 10 years.
So the way I feel about NFTs today is exactly how I felt about crypto in 2017. I knew that this fever and hype wouldn't last. From 2017 to 18, there was probably a 4 month period where it was just like NFTs this past year, and from 2020 to 2021. Right now, I would definitely say we're in a bearish trend. But these trends are always up and down, and that's something I've come to learn from being in crypto all these years, where it's not something I'm concerned about at all. I think you have to really look into the underlying technology. You have to look at the business as a whole and try to foresee. You know, you can only all we can do is try our best to foresee how it's going to look in a few years. And I'm asking myself the same question: will it be bigger or smaller or gone in a few years? And I still think it'll be bigger. I really do think this is just the beginning. With NFTs, sure, there was like Bored Apes, Suzuki's, all these high NFTs that got really hyped, but I highly doubt that's the end all be all goal of NFTs. We're looking at a lot. I think we're looking at a lot more large companies and traditional companies entering or incorporating NFTs in some way, whether it's through tokenizing items. I mean, right now we're seeing, for example, like Tiffany and Co. just did a NFT with CryptoPunks. I think we'll start seeing a lot of, for example, we'll see events companies using NFTs as tickets. We'll start having maybe sports memorabilia connected to NFTs. I think tokenization and this technology is here to stay. In terms of how it's what I meant, how it's so similar to 2017 is we saw a rise of thousands of tokens pop up, and at the time, most people had a good head on their shoulders probably knew that most of them wouldn't last, and they didn't. Probably, I would gander a guess maybe 1% of the companies from 2017 have survived till today in terms of cryptocurrencies. I think NFTs will be the same. I think it'll depend on the people who've not only had a good idea, but maybe even more importantly, the people who can sort of like your background there, saying always hustling, right? The people who can keep hustling and just keep on going no matter what the market trend is, those are the ones that'll succeed. So I predict in a couple of years' time, probably 99% of these companies will be gone too. Whether it's large or small, it'll depend on who's sort of got the persistence to keep going.
Yeah, I mean, not just in crypto, right? I think it's in every business. And
Absolutely.
I think I saw a statement by Y Combinator recently, and their statement is conserve your cash flow, stay alive. Most importantly, stay alive. Because the longer you can stay alive, the more you get more of the market share, right? Because your competitors will eventually run out of money, file for bankruptcy, or fail. And just honestly, the name of the game sometimes in business is just staying alive, right? Whether that's your
Absolutely.
financial or your energy, right? As a founder, it's sometimes you're making good money, but then you lose the passion for what you're working at, and that's also very detrimental to business. So, Dave,
Absolutely. Right now, to me, cash, not only in crypto, but I think cash is king right now. Staying exactly like you said, staying alive is the most important because as long as you have cash flow left or you have reserves, if you can stay alive, then you just got to wait it out. Especially in crypto and NFTs, it's really just about waiting it out till the next bull run. Which always comes. People in 2018 to 19, what we call like crypto winter, I guess. Those 2 years were tough. Like no clients were strapped with cash, so we got from the consultancy side, we got paid a lot less. It was harder to close leads. So that time, what we did in that time, we just went out to we still kept going out to conferences. We flew to different conferences probably every week. We were in Korea, Singapore, Indonesia, Vietnam, Beijing, Shanghai. That's all we did. We just kept networking, and we weren't. There was probably a good period, quite a few months where we didn't make a single dollar. We were just burning cash, flying around and meeting people. Um, but hey, from 2018 to 19, after passing that, 2000 came 2020, another bull run, as pretty much as predicted. Um, it's just these are just market cycles, right? And staying alive is the most important. Same with NFTs and any other business.
Yeah, definitely. 100%, man. I know that feeling too when you're just flying around networking, burning cash, and you're just getting paranoid. You're like, oh my God, am I even making the right decisions right now? I have no idea.
Right.
Yeah. So I guess as we're getting to the end of the podcast, I want to ask a sort of personal question. My question is, David, as an entrepreneur doing this business for 5 years, how do you take care of your not only physical well-being, but your mental well-being as well, like as an entrepreneur?
Oh, great question. That's something I've sort of been that's something I've been thinking a lot about recently. I personally think exercise is really important. I try to exercise as much as I possibly can. Um, in terms of mental well-being, I think it's easy to be happy in crypto or this business even whether you're an entrepreneur or not when things are going well. 2017, I was happy every single day. I woke up happy. Just nothing. Didn't need to think about mental health or exercise. It was just good because the numbers were there. The money was there. But then 2018, 19 was a lot slower. So we just kept for that during that time we just kept busy. Right now, it's also reached another slow point where I envision we'll probably have to wait another year or two before business really picks up again. But I'm a lot more used to that now. I think mental health is incredibly important because when you're not happy, you're not making the right decisions, or when you're stressed out or feeling paranoid about things, which I think every entrepreneur goes through sometimes. But that's sort of the path we chose. I think it's good for me to personally always remember no matter how bad things get, when I look at it holistically, this is still better than working those 16-hour days at the hotels.
Yeah, that's one way to put it. It's a lesser of two evils in some ways.
Mhm. It's also I think it's also important to just remember that no matter what you're doing, if you choose to be an entrepreneur, I'm sure it's because most people have a passion for what they're doing, or they're really interested, or they feel they can make an impact with what they're doing, right? And that's something I think we're still doing as with our companies every single day. Whether it's a bear market or bull market, at least we're making impact, and that's something that, and also we're doing with people that we love working with. That's something that I think is pretty priceless.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And I really appreciate all those insights too. And running a business is tough. Being an entrepreneur is tough. It's often very lonely, right? And you gotta do what you can. Well, you gotta do what you can to like really keep yourself in check because sometimes there's no one else to keep yourself in check besides yourself.
Yeah, exactly. And some days, of course, even I don't want to be getting back to work, but you just got to keep like it says, always hustling, right? That's all we can do.
Exactly.
And then wait for the good days, because they will come if you just keep trying.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And one more thing before we end up that statement, there's always I feel like entrepreneurship that there's always more bad days and good days, but for every good day that comes by, it makes up for all the bad days you go through.
Absolutely. The sense for me, it's the sense of accomplishment when things finally work out, and it makes years of pain and suffering worth it.
Absolutely. So David, so how can our listeners find out more about you and reach out to you online?
My main contact would probably be Twitter. So you can follow me at crypt. My handle is Crypto Godfather. Um, handle I came up with a long time ago. You can also follow Block Journal or Astro Baby Club on Twitter and Instagram.
Awesome. We'll include all that on the show notes. But David, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. It was so much fun.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. A big fan of what you guys do. Keep up the good work.
Awesome. Thank you.